Hey everyone, and welcome to AK Expenses Tracker. Here we go with the session number 14. Just as always, before we get started, just a quick reminder: make sure to join our Discord server where we have amazing discussions over here. You can ask questions easier than the YouTube comments, suggestions, and stuff like that. And in addition to that, make sure to check the AK Academy schedule right now page on my official website, so you can find over here the featured session that has been published, the upcoming ones with the date of each one, in addition to the posted ones. And you can actually just click on that, and it's going to redirect you to that video. So in this case, you know how to organize yourselves because you can see the dates available for you over here. So let's go ahead and get started with our session. So today we are going to write the query that's going to implement single wallet by user ID. By its ID. So last time we have implemented the list wallets, we improved it using the DTOs and stuff like that. So if I hit send, in this test, you're going to see that we have the request comes in. Sorry. So here we go, we see them, and everything just working fine and as expected. But when you retrieve one wallet by its ID, we need to retrieve all the details basically of that wallet. So this is what we are going to do today, but we are going to focus only on the data part that will retrieve this data from the database. I will go to the repositories over here, or first to the interface, and this interface retrieves list by user ID. The other thing that I'll be doing is retrieve wallet get by ID async string wallet ID, and we need also the user ID because this wallet has to be retrieved by wallet ID for this user ID. The user, if he passed like a random wallet and he's not logged in with that correct user ID, he shouldn't have access for that. So let's make this be capital letter. That's nice. Let's hit Ctrl F12 to go to the children, which is this file over here. And yeah, let's add a region list wallets and zoom in a little bit, and region, let's go with that, and get by ID and region. Nice. So let's write this function that's very simple and basic, like that. List by user ID get by ID async string wallet ID string user ID. Okay, very good. So the first thing is that we need to check that those two variables are not empty, so because they are both required for this function, for this method to function actually. Wallet ID, so we throw a new argument null exception, name of wallet ID, and if string dot is null or white space user ID argument null exception name of user ID. So this is just to throw an exceptions if those variables are empty. Now the next thing that will be done is just to follow the same steps over here. So basically we are going to write a query, and the query is going to be select star from C, which is the container. Like it could be the wallet. Here it's different than SQL. You don't define the table because the query will run against a specific container that we define over here in the Cosmos DB client. So yeah, this query is against the container, and so C here means the container. You can call it F, you can call it whatever you want. From where C dot ID is equals to add, as you have seen over here, we should define and C dot user ID equals add user ID. So to avoid SQL injection, we don't pass them like as a normal strings using those quotations and stuff like that, because the user can manipulate the value of this one in or another, and this could lead to some disasters. This is not the topic of this, but you should always be careful by passing the parameters using the parameters capability that the database provider gives to you. Like in this case, we have query definition, this new query definition, and this is the query text, and then we pass some parameters just like that. We can take the same code. I'll write it again just with parameter at ID to the wallet ID with parameter at user ID. That's nice. I like the AI capabilities. So this is it. The last thing is to bring the container. DB get container. It's called wallets. We need to pass the database as well, which is AKX. I think I mistyped the name of the database over here, so let me go and check. Expenses tracker DB. Yeah, that's correct. I'm always bad at this. Expenses. So expenses tracker DB, and there is no AK here. So let's remove it. You can get that fixed on your side. I would get it fixed on my side, but I always forget about it. So, but this is the time to do it. So now let's execute the query. Var iterator equals container get item iterator of type wallet. This is the query, and then let's get the result. Var await iterator dot read next async, and we need one result only. We don't need too many results because basically it's either one or not exist. So dot first or default, just like that. And dot resource. So this is the list of wallets. So we just need the first one or default, and we need to define this as nullable. To do that, as nullable. Very good. Sorry, I did it in the wrong place. Okay, I think F12. I'll make it like that. Very good. So right now in a good shape. This is it. So let's make a very quick recap. We have here, first we validated the parameters of the method. Then we wrote the query text, which is select star from C, where c.id equals this parameter ID and the user ID over here. Because as I've said, wallet ID alone is not enough. Because if a user has a set of wallets IDs by anyways, and he made a request to the API and he passed the wallet ID, he could retrieve that wallet which is not for him. So we need to make sure that it's for user ID, for wallet ID, and this user ID is the one who's logged in. We retrieve that from the Azure function itself by the access token later on. And then we define the query definition. We have used that to basically pass some parameters and not use the single quotations and pass the strings over here like in a single string, and then we prepare the an object of or a container object from the database. I mistyped the name of the database over here. I haven't this type of expenses. Oh, sorry. I'm make sure to it's like that. To do resolve the name of the database. Okay, so we can see this to do later on. Then we brought an iterator and we made the first run and we checked to retrieve the first object only, and only the first object. So this is it. This is all that you have to do right now. Very quickly, I started by the other direction, but over here, if we run a query, open a query, let's select them all, and you're going to see we have this bank, which is the first one. Let me make that a little bit big for you. Okay, so which is this, let's take its ID. And for now, as we said, for the testing purposes, the user ID is always have the user ID value until we implement the B2C. Let's go back to query and we'll say where c.id equals this, and c.user ID equals user ID. execute, and we get an error that says location start syntax error, incorrect syntax near equals. Okay, let's take a look at what we have. Oh yeah, over here we have only one. Okay, here we go. So this is what I have. This is in C# and not over here. So let's update our query over here. It's only one. Yeah, very good. So this one, we are going to test that in the next video, but for this video we just focus on the code that retrieves this data from the database. So basically, if this is the only way, actually no, we can use entity framework for Cosmos DB, but I prefer this way as it gives me more control. This is number one. Number two, not all the functionality that you have an entity framework available for SQL Server is available for Cosmos DB. So sometimes this causes a pain, and you need to write the documentation very carefully, and you need to follow the trial and error approach, which is not very good, especially when you are writing courses or building applications like this, because of the time limitation and stuff like that. So this approach is good. We're not going to be very heavy on the database, but we will talk about some great practices, especially when we have transactions. We will have some, when we build dashboards and querying the database, there's going to be some great stuff. So for now, this is it. In the next video, we're just going to create the Azure function that calls this function and retrieve the wallet to the user, and we can see that over here. So thank you so much for watching, everyone, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to support us to do more things. And yeah, see you in the next video.